I think that body literacy means that we regularly tap into the womb space. So that meditation that we did earlier, I do a version of that almost every single day. And it doesn't have to take longer than 30 seconds to do. I just literally put my hands in that space and close my eyes and tap into like what is going on? Like, where am I at in my cycle? And how do I feel like in all of the different ways? Like, how does my energy feel? How does my womb space feel? Do I feel any cramping? Do I feel any imbalances that might be derived from like nutrition or stress or sleep? And I really try to use that data to inform how I'm going to treat my body and do self-care for the day. I think that if you have the ability to learn from your body and see the cervical fluid that you're experiencing, then that's something that I really highly recommend. And if for some reason you don't experience that type of cervical fluid, which is going to show you like what part of like what phase of the menstrual cycle that you're in. And some people might not have these signs due to medications or different health conditions, but I still strongly believe that it's really important to learn what those differences are in cervical fluid because not only is it important if you then start to have that cervical fluid, but it's something that you can teach others. And that gets to like the vital point. There's a lot of laws being made in the States and globally, different things are happening. And I think that having body literacy, knowing what's going on in your body, knowing what the different parts are of your body and how you can connect them in both a scientific way and a spiritual way is so unbelievably empowering. And it helps you take your power back because laws can be made and they do and are detrimental, but there is a power within having that knowledge that someone cannot take away. And it's also very powerful to be able to share that knowledge with your community and know that this is something that will like outlive you. It will be information that can go from generation to generation, with or without a book, hopefully, in my mind. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love the idea of it becoming like a story because in the end it is almost like it's a conversation with your body. Your body's constantly giving you the cues. We're just not taught to, yeah, to see them. And I think this is obviously part of a much bigger conversation, but there is a separation between mind and body, between like and not to mention how our wombs are constantly controlled by politicians and laws that are being made. So I think it is quite there's a strong thread to reclaiming womb wisdom, and there's especially also in a medical system that to me, that's my personal view, has completely forgotten about women's bodies and or people with uterus bodies. So can you speak to how the act of knowing and tending to our womb is also a form of resistance and cultural healing? Like, what do you think about this?
When I think about the sexual education that I received and everyone else that I know, at least in the States and many other countries that where I have connections and friends, it is abysmal and it is harrowing to me whenever I think about the fact that I have spoken to countless amount of people who are postmenopausal who don't know about cervical fluid and they've had children or they lived their entire lives without knowing that they didn't have to live in fear of getting pregnant again or getting pregnant period if they didn't want to or even knowing like what it meant to you know be ovulating or be in their luteal phase. They didn't even know what these things were. So to me, I think that learning this information and disseminating it is going to, like you said, like it's a way to like fight back against the powers that be that wish to keep us in the dark about the realities. Because at the end of the day, they aren't very well informed. I read newsline after newsline when it comes to reproductive wellness and health. And the people who are making laws about our bodies do not know how our bodies work, let alone what's going on with them. I mean, yeah, it's kind of bewildering. And I think that it is our responsibility to know what's going on, not only with our own bodies, but with any range of issues that could happen within a person, like within women's bodies, people with women's bodies. Like, just because you don't have a certain health condition that affects the womb space doesn't mean there's not an empowering element to know about that condition. Because you never know, like, you might have a child one day that has that, or you might have a best friend come into your life and they have this health condition. And it is a really beautiful thing and beautiful way to connect with other people when you're able to like share in information and be able to connect on a deeper level that really sparks, I feel like, a connection that the upper powers would not like us to have. I feel like it solidifies our bond and makes us stronger.
Yeah, and it's also so magical what happens in the womb. Like everything that happens, even the way the cervical fluid works. At least that was my experience when it was like, you have to be careful not to get pregnant. Took contraceptives for decades, and then yeah, then you get to the point and then maybe it's not so easy, or maybe it's super easy. I don't know. Like everyone has their own story, but something I've discovered in my research has been honestly the utter magic, like its beauty. Even the way the cervical fluid works. When you're supposed to get pregnant, it's a certain viscosity and it's to let the sperm in, and then after it becomes thicker because it's like it's closing the gates and it wants to keep everything in. And sometimes I just hear these things. I'm like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. There's power in it because there's so much ignorance about it. There's just so little knowledge. Also, a lot of medical studies are not done on women. I was just diagnosed with endometriosis, and I went to my doctor, and she's not like necessarily like someone who's like very politically active, but she was saying like, yeah, most of the studies are not made on women, on women's bodies, and this is why there's also medicines are not often not tested on women, but then given to women, vaccines as well, etc., etc. So it's so powerful to have that knowledge, also to be able to say no in a system that. So I think that's also the power that it gives you. I wanted to ask, you often you speak about the womb as obviously more than a biological organ, a site of knowing, of memory, of power. And what are some ways in which we can begin to listen to the womb in a deeper and more relational way?
It's really its own ecosystem. And in that way, we each have our own ecosystem. So each of our womb spaces are going to be acting in different ways for all of these different reasons, whether it's like our biology, our environment, the lifestyle that we have. And I think that we can connect to that space. Again, it's like the most simple things I have found in my practice and in working with other people are the most profound things. So really, it's like tapping into that space, like I said earlier, and just putting your hands literally physically on your body and getting to know what your baseline is. Like when you wake up in the morning, like what does your body feel like? Like what are your energy levels? What are your needs? What do you feel like your body is telling you? And at first, it might feel really quiet and it might feel kind of like you're not hearing anything, or maybe you're making up what you're hearing. But if you do this consistently, you really will start to like feel like your womb space is speaking to you. And you're going to realize that our wombs are communicating to us on a really big level constantly. Whenever I'm working with people and there's different health conditions that come in, there's different things that I feel like that come through that are telling us various things. So sometimes whenever I see someone come in with chronic yeast infections, I think like, okay, like what's going on. There might be something in your lifestyle that's going on, but also there could be something that's spiritually connected to the fact that there's something in your lifestyle. Say you can't get enough sleep or you're eating too many sugary foods and it's actually causing like a deep imbalance within the pH of your body and it's creating the yeast infections. There's something that you can tap into there on like a really deep level and also on a physical level as well to bring yourself into a place where you can start to like course correct and see what that root cause is that is creating this communication from your womb space. Because to me, health conditions are communications and they do have many levels. They're not just like a physical thing that's happening to you. There's a spiritual element to it. There's a mental and emotional level to it. And I think that whenever we take the time to just simply like tune in and bring awareness to the fact that our body's constantly communicating things to us, and those of us with wombs were being communicated to on like a level that is very, very profound because it's a level, it's a space of creativity. It's literally the space where like all babies, all life, human life is gestated in this space. And so therefore, it's just like this creative portal that wants us to keep creating and wants us to have like this really fluid and beautiful life. But if we get out of line as to like what is actually best for us and most aligned for us, I feel like the communication you'll start to really notice when you tap into the space more frequently that the communication can be very loud and can really be a guiding light for you, if that is pretty clear.
When you were speaking, what came to my mind is also the importance of connecting with cyclicality as a concept. And because I think we do live in a world that's quite linear in the way that we're taught to do things. Even the workforce is made in a way that's like not catered to cyclical bodies, and everyone has cyclical bodies. Even like every gender has cyclical
Yeah.
bodies. So I think that's also such an important part for me. And also nature has cycles, and it's how do we tend to that? And within that, then there's a lot of connection to the systems that we're living under. So for example, how patriarchy and capitalism, how do they contribute to creating a world that feels very linear and that doesn't cater to this cyclicality? So I think that's also such a beautiful and poetic way to rebel against it. I don't know, when I discovered it, I found it really beautiful and it really gave me a lot. I wanted to ask, now I want to go a little bit more into herbal medicine and how we can reconnect with the cyclical nature of our bodies through herbalism.
Before I like to dive into herbalism, I like to note a couple of things, like a couple, just an overarching, I guess, theme of how I like to approach herbalism. I really like to look at it like in a non-allopathic way, which means I like to step outside of the Western model of the way that they look at health conditions and imbalances. And I like to look at it as like, how can we bring herbs into our life to build more harmony and to bring more balance into our full body systems? So it's not really so much like using herbs for a certain condition in like a way that we would swallow a pill, but it's looking at it in like more of a spiritual and integrated way. And also, before moving into herbalism, I like to look at the lifestyle. And I've mentioned that a couple of times already. And when I'm talking about the lifestyle, I mean like sleep. Are you getting enough sleep? Is it good sleep? Is it deep sleep? Diet. Are you eating whole foods? Are you trying to stay away from things that are going to bring you imbalance? And what one person eats isn't going to be the most supportive thing for the next person to eat. And so it's important for all of these things to realize that these are individual approaches. Like I said this earlier, like our womb is an ecosystem, but our bodies are ecosystems. And just because you live in one area, just imagine where you're living right now and think about just even like a half mile down the road or kilometer from where you're living. Like there might be a river space, and a plant that would be planted near that river space isn't going to be necessarily planted and thriving where you're living right now or in an open field. So, likewise, I like to look at our bodies this way and realize that not everything that we're going to need is going to be the same for the next person. And so I really like to like try to stay away from dogmatic approaches, or things that are just like really like set in stone, like this worked for me and so this is going to work for you. And then further within the lifestyle, I like to look at, I said sleep, diet, movement is really important. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to be like going to the gym every single day, but doing regular movement that feels really supportive to your body and feels like something that feels invigorating and good to you, whether that's like lifting weights or dancing in your living room to just like a couple of songs. That's something that's important to get your lymph system moving and your fluids moving. And that is something that we need to focus on before we bring into the herbs. And after that, I like to look at our spiritual connection and then also our community connection. And that's something that I find out is like missing whenever we're looking at lifestyle, but those are really important elements as well. And then aside from that, whenever we do move into herbalism, I like to first encourage people to approach the class of herbs called the nourishing herbs. And nourishing herbs are a class of herbs that are really like wild weeds. That's how the majority of us would view them. And they are mineral rich and nutrient dense. Like they are, the majority of these herbs are so like rich in bioavailable nutrients that in many cultures they are considered foods. So some plants that are in this category include burdock root, which is also called gobo in Asian cultures. We have dandelion root and dandelion leaf, calendula, hawthorn leaf and flower, cleavers, chickweed, nettle leaf, red raspberry leaf, and linden flower and leaf. Those are the majority of the ones in that group. And I think that it is a class of herbs that is really approachable and is generally safe for most people. So there are some contraindications that I strongly recommend you seek out if you have any health conditions or if you're on any prescription medications, because while herbs are gentle, they are also powerful and they do have the ability to shift different things within our bodies or really work on the liver. And if something's really working on the liver or another body system that is also being worked on through medications that you might be taking, or they might be at risk due to a health condition, then that's something to absolutely consider before starting the process of using them consistently.